Okay, let's create a Node.js server, our first one. So to start things off, we need to essentially import HTTP, which is a built-in core module, and we're going to use this. We're going to do this by importing using the require function, HTTP. So next, we want to determine what port to listen to. So we're going to create a port, so constant port, and we can set this to 3000 or really any number all the way up to like 65,535. However, there are some ports that you technically shouldn't be using, which include 80, 443, 21, and 22, because these represent SSH, FTP, HTTPS, and HTTP, and they're the traditional norms. So next, what we want to do is we want to create the server. So to do this, we declare constant server, and we'll set it equal to the HTTP variable we made earlier, or constant we made earlier, and then we're going to create server. And within this function, we're going to have a callback function which takes the parameters request, we'll just do rec, and response. Alright, so before we dive into this, we're just gonna set up the next step, which is server, which is essentially how we're gonna listen to the server. So we're gonna do server.listen. I know this is all very counterintuitive. And we're gonna pass in our port and another callback function with an error parameter. This is to make sure that we're reading or writing the file properly. And so in here, we're going to do if there is an error, if it occurs, we'll just log something. So we'll do console.log something went wrong, and pass an error. Otherwise, if everything works out fine, we will log out console, or we'll do server is listening on port, and then we'll pass in our port, which is 3000 in this case. And now for the content inside our server. So before we do that, I'm actually just gonna put in some random text for the HTML document. So we could do a shortcut, we'll do exclamation mark and then enter, so we get the structure instantly. And then here I'm just going to put something random like artigam is here, save that. And now in our server function, we're going to pass in some context. What do we want to do with our server? We might want to write something, we want to display something, whatever. And so in here we have to essentially use a function, a pre-built-in function, and this will help us write things. So for now we can do res.writeHead, and we can pass in a safe number, which indicates that it's safe. And then in here we're going to explicitly tell them what pathway or what kind of content we're dealing with. So we'll do content type, and the content type we're dealing with is text/HTML. So we're accessing the content from our HTML. And then what we want to do is we want to read this file, right? So before we do that, what did I do? Constant. Okay, I already did it for me, but essentially what you're supposed to do was you want to create a constant fs, and you also want to require, so you're importing the fs module, just like that. And now we can properly use it. Sorry, but earlier what happened was VS Code just automatically did that for me due to my negligence or ignorance. And then, so using this, we can do we could use one of its properties, read file, and we want to read from index.html, which is what we named it, and another callback function with the parameters of error and the data, or the stuff inside. And so, oh, what am I doing? So we'll do that. And we're going to check if we do get an error. So we do get an error. We want to write head a 404 message. This indicates that there was an error. And you've probably encountered this 404 message countless times for different web pages or browsers you visited. And we also want to give an error message. So we'll do res.write error, say file was not found. Yeah, we'll do that. I think that's an appropriate error message. Otherwise, if it works out nicely, we want to write our context or our data. So we'll just pass in data because that's what we named it in our callback function. And then we want to end our response. So we'll do res.end with brackets, because this is a function or event or whatever. And yeah, I think that should hypothetically work. So save your file, go to the terminal, and you want to type in node and then the name of your file. So that in my case it would be index.js. So be node index.js, and then you hit enter. It should say server is listening on port 3000 or wherever you named your port. And if we open this on browser, we can see it works nicely. We can also change the text. We can change it to something like, let's do Artigam loves you. If we save that, you notice even it doesn't really change. It's still the same. So what you have to do is you actually have to restart the server. So in your terminal, you can just use the short key Control-C to end your server, and then just run it again. Node index.js. It's listening on port 3000. You can just refresh and it should work. Or you can just open another one in your browser, which is cool. So generally the benefits of creating a Node.js server include, again, like we saw, server dynamic content. And this basically allows us to create pages based on data. So like without it, websites are limited to files that are only existing. So like images, whatever. If you open that same web page countless times, you always get, if you request to that same web page, you always get the same response. Whereas for Node.js servers, you can have different responses depending on who you're dealing with. So it can show personalized contents, and it can also essentially query databases and respond uniquely depending on the request. So it can be, maybe there might be a user named Bob, another user named, I don't know, Mr. Beast, and it will respond accordingly depending on their personal data and personalizations. Another cool fact is static sites. Everyone can see the same welcome page, but in our case, this is not static sites. These are non-static sites. What am I saying? I don't even know what I'm yabbering about. But anyways, other cool facts about Node.js servers is they can keep secrets secure. It can also connect, like I mentioned earlier, it can connect to databases or query databases, and it can also, interestingly, create APIs. If you have any interest in APIs, it can also validate requests, so that's pretty cool. And my personal favorite is it has like real-time features. So this can help with chat apps if you're making any of those. Me personally, multiplayer games. So like it can be online as well as local. You know, those popular .io games that were like really viral in like 2016 or the early 2000s. Those were, yeah, most of them were made using Node.js and WebSockets and other great things. But yeah, there's obviously far more things you could do with Node.js servers, but I'll just keep it at that. And yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep now. I am so tired. I don't even know what I'm talking about. What am I doing? Where am I? Okay, let's end this.